Hi folks, in this tutorial we will look at painting toxic swamp bases, whether for the denizens of plague gods or for times where you'd really wished you'd strap that Geiger counter to your wrist. Let's get stuck into the swamps, and with that, let's cue the music. To start out, we're going to be laying down some ground texture for this swamp. To do this, take a small scoop of Stirland mud and start to spread it thinly out over the base. Make sure to leave some areas in which to apply some of the more toxic textures later on. Make sure that this texture paint is fully dried before you move on to the next step. I advise doing this in batches. Once the Stirland mud has dried, we'll be then coming in with a dry brush of Gorthor brown. And this needs to be an all over dry brush over all of the Stirland mud. And what we're going to be doing here is picking out all the raised detail and starting to lighten up that brown colour, providing us a nice tonal difference. To add a final highlight to the dirt, here I'm taking some Karak stone to add a very light dry brush to pick out the final raised details on the Stirland mud. Once our dirt is complete, we can then start applying a base coat to where our toxic slime areas are going to be. I'm using Caliban Green from Games Workshop thinned down with a little bit of water and painting in a base coat area onto where we want the little toxic ponds to be. And don't worry about going over, we're not worried about being especially neat here. Once the Caliban Green has dried, I am then using Nurgle's Rot Technical Paint from Games Workshop to start adding a slimy, toxic texture over the Caliban Green. The trick with the Nurgle's Rot is to apply this in thin layers and build up the colour. If it goes on in one thick layer, it can dry strange and never quite looks right. It's always worth building this colour up, even if it may take 3 or 4 thin coats for it. With the Nurgle's Rot colour now a nice solid toxic waste, I'm now going to use a dying grass tuft to complete this swampy look. I've prepped the area I'm applying the tuft with a dab of super glue, and here this one happens to be Mordheim turf from Games Workshop, but you can use any tufts that you want. Peel it off the backing paper and put it into place with some tweezers to stop the super glue sticking to your fingers. Apply as many or as few as these as you like. I generally say less tends to be more when you're using tufts. All that's left to do now is to paint the rim of your base. I recommend doing this the same as the rest of the army, but here I've gone for a nice beige brown colour. And with that, our toxic swamp base is now complete. I recommend using super glue to affix your model to this base. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so to get updates on new tutorials just like this one. I hope this has given you lots of ideas and helped you with your modelling.